Cardinals won a very unusual game last night, simply because 1-0 in that ballpark against that team. That qualifies as kind of a rare thing. I don't know that we're going to see much of that happen in this season. The Cardinals, and I'm not taking a shot here, I thought it was a really impressive victory, but for them to be able to go into Texas or to play any really, really terrific team and win 1-0. I mean, you can see like a little bit of a high-scoring game. They come out on top 6-5 or something, 7-6. But to get out of there last night, to at least, scrounge successfully for one win on the 6-game road trip. But to get out of there last night on an evening when, again, unusual. How many complete games do you see, first of all? John Gray, even though he was the, quote, losing pitcher, he 9 innings, he allows like 4 hits. He strikes out 12. That's about 40% of the batters he faced. The Cardinals could do nothing with him, and yet they win 1-0 on a home run by Alec Burleson. And the pitch was actually really, really great. I appreciate Burleson's honesty. He just said that ball was kind of moving in a direction coming inside, and it just happened to kind of like meet up with my bat path. In other words, he was saying, I didn't do anything great. Ball was moving in on side of me, and I got my swing, where it needed to be, and it just happened to catch it. So, and that's good. It doesn't matter how, as long as you get it done. So I was happy for him because he gets roasted all the time, and I stand by my proclamation that he's going to be a good major league hitter. I just can't promise you how soon, but he's got what it takes. So, but that was a nice win. Jack Flaherty, 6 innings, followed by Hicks, Gallegos, and Helsley, shutting that team out, highest scoring team in the majors, and the team's averaging over 7 runs at home. So that's a nice win. I mean, it was still a lousy road trip, but it was a nice win, and it was a ball game I enjoyed watching. I don't know if it's an old-fashioned pitcher's duel because Jack Flaherty walked 5 in his 6 innings, but listen, man, Jack Flaherty is doing really, really well, even with the walks. He's getting away with the walks. I don't know that that'll last. Although, here's my first stat of the day for you. He's walked 40 this season, but only like 7 have come home to score, or 18% have come home to score. That's not bad. 17%, something like that. That's not bad. So he's really actually it's pretty good. He's gotten away with it, and he got away with it last night, walking the bases loaded with the 1 out in the first inning. But so say this for the guy, even, the haters won't acknowledge anything positive, but say this for the guy. He does fight his tail off when he gets cornered. Now, I know he got smashed by the Angels for that start where he pitched a couple innings, gave up 10 runs. Since then, 6 starts, his ERA is 2.06, which since that time, his first start, I think we're talking about May the 9th. Jack Flaherty's got the 5th best starting pitcher ERA in the majors among starters that have worked at least, I think, 35 innings at that time. I have that stat. That's what it is. So I don't know how he's getting it done because usually you walk that many people, and his walk rate's really high. It's one of the third highest in the majors among starting pitchers. But most of the time, well, certainly during this stretch where he's pitched really well, he manages to fight him off, and I respect that. I wouldn't suggest that this is the way to go about it. Get yourself in trouble and then get yourself out of trouble. Pretty risky way to pitch, but he's managed to do a pretty good job of managing terrible situations that he puts himself into. All I know is over his last 6 starts, he's got the 5th best starting pitcher ERA in the major leagues. And if we're going to whine and complain and blast people and go nuts and dispense venom because the starting pitching has been so bad for the Cardinals this year, which it has overall, I think you got to acknowledge when one of the fellers is doing pretty damn good, whether you like him or not. You want good starting pitching. He has supplied it. since beginning like his second start in the month of May. So I'll take it.
He has been
Jim Heuer. I didn't even introduce you.
That's okay.
Although everyone knows.
You had
Jim Heuer.
You had a little pause there, so I thought I'd jump in for a second.
No, I wanted you to.
To your point, when you say you got to acknowledge what they're doing when they're doing it well, like Miklasz and Flaherty have been really good lately. And Miklasz, about 8-9 starts in a row. And I know people don't like to hear this, and this is not justifying and say, well, see, it's not that bad. But the reality is there are not a lot of staffs, Bernie, that have guys going past 6 innings anymore. There just are not. And you know what? I would like to see more of these guys get into the 6th and maybe get, hey, let's see if we can get you into the 7th. The reality is across the league, there are not a lot of staffs that go, I got about 3 guys I can count on to give me 7 every night. Those days are over. And it's, this group, heck, they give you 5 in 3 innings, you're going, in 3 runs, you're kind of going, well, that's not bad. And they need to be better. But the reality is the rest of the league isn't overwhelming with starting pitching. It's just the way the game is now. And you got to be a little more, I'm not saying you or me, but you just got to kind of go, well, we just kind of go, that's where it is these days.
Yeah, the last time out, Miklasz went 8, and then, Flaherty goes 6. Because of the standards, and you got to recognize that Bob Gibson, it's not 1968 with Bob Gibson. The way things are now across majors, to your point, Cardinals gives the team 6 really good innings, I'll take it.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. I just wish they would not have to throw as many pitches. But that's kind of what happens. I don't know. It happens when you're chasing strikeouts, as Derek Gould pointed out. Actually sometimes where I'd be really happy with a ground ball, instead of a guy, throwing 3 more pitches because he's trying to get a strikeout and he's not a strikeout pitcher. They just throw as a group. They just throw way too many pitches. But that was a good start last night, and I got one more thing along those lines for you, and I have it, and I'm right here. Since May the 25th, and that is 12 games ago, since May the 25th, believe it or not, the Cardinals have the National League's best starting pitching ERA at 2.77, and that ERA is second in the majors to Texas over that time. Now, it's 12 games. It is a blip or two in time. I realize that. No one has to lecture me about small sample sizes. It's a sentence I've typed or said like 7 million times in the last 3 years.
Yes.
All I'm saying is if you want to look at recent trends and you say, okay, well, which way are things blowing here? Or is it going north or is it going south? Over this little blip or two in time, their rotation is pitched very well. Now, the challenge is, can you get more people than Miklasz and Flaherty to do it? Because they represent much of that success, most of it in a way. I think it's all up to Jordan Montgomery. And by the way, I'm not saying, hey, the book's closed on Flaherty and Miklasz. Oh, you can count on them the rest of the way. I think I feel pretty good about that when we talk about Miklasz, but I don't know. I feel a lot better about Flaherty, and he's in a good place right now, and it's just up to him to keep it up. Now, this doesn't mean that he's going to not have a blow up or two. I mean, none of these guys are, like we mentioned, Bob Gibson. None of these guys are Bob Gibson, but these 2 guys are going really, really well. And the problem so recently has not been the starting pitching; it's been the offense, which is the Cardinal way this season. The starting pitching's good, the offense bad, offense great, starting pitching bad. Bullpen blow-ups here and there, defense base running, you name it. But I just want to note, I want to commend the progress because, again, I do a lot of blasting on this show because I took a vow to tell the truth and I'm not going to hold back. But when I blast and when I criticize and when I say, hey, man, this really stinks, I feel obligated, and it's not really obligated. I just think the fair thing to do is to say, look, I know we've been beating up on this rotation all season, but the last couple of weeks they've been pretty damn good. Now they got to try to continue it, and the best way to continue it is the starting pitcher we'll see tomorrow night against the Reds. Tomorrow night against the Reds, Jordan Montgomery. He's got to get back into it. He's got to become the guy we've seen quite a few times since they acquired him from the Yankees at the deadline. He pitched really, really well for the most of the time last year. Had bad. The last 4 starts weren't not good at all. He got off to a really good start this year, and then again, his last 5-6 starts have been poor. That's got to flip. He's got to change that. So if they get 3 guys going well, then you got something. You got something. Is it ideal? No, but at least you got something, because there was a time when they had maybe like 1 guy in that rotation pitching well, and that was Montgomery early in the season. Michaelis got off to a bad start. Jack Flaherty got off to a bad start. Steven Matz got off to a bad start. Yeah. Jake Woodford got a chance. Nah, it didn't work. Wainwright's Wainwright. That's all I'm going to say from now on. Wainwright's Wainwright. There's no need to review everything. We know he's here. We know he'll stay in the rotation. As we talked with Derek Gould yesterday, I think the most realistic thing you can hope for with Wainwright is that he can kind of slither around out there and, bob and weave and play dodgeball and just kind of finesse and trick his way to holding an offense like the Texas Rangers have, holding that down pretty well, which he did, all things considered, the other night. So that's a positive, but they got to reawaken the bats. We'll get into that later, and we'll have John Denton on to talk about. But it's pretty interesting that you look at this, and that's the best starting ERA in the National League since May the 25th. Not that long ago, but at least it's trending in the right direction. And a couple other notes about Flaherty. I mentioned that last 6 starts, 2.06 ERA, 5th best in the majors among starting pitchers that have worked at least 35 innings since May the 9th. Only 7 of his 40 batters walked this year have come around to score. He's been very fortunate. A lot of that is his ability to get out of jams. He hasn't given up a home run on his last 5 starts either. That's really good. And another thing, obviously, 1 home run in 5 starts for any starting pitcher. That's terrific. One other thing, and then I'll shut up about this. He's getting a good mix of strikeouts and ground balls, and that's kind of what you want. Hadn't allowed a lot of balls hit hard in the air during this stretch. So anyway, he's got a 24% strikeout rate this season, and that approaches like his best ever, which was 2021, and all of that was pretty much during the first couple months of the season. But his 48.5% ground ball rate is the highest he's had since he made his debut in the majors, and even that is kind of misleading because he was a kid and he only pitched like 21 innings that year. So in effect, it's the best ground ball rate that he's had, and his strikeout rate continues to go up. So, yeah, I mean, Jack, again, I'm using the same phrase over and over again, so excuse me. But, yeah, he is absolutely moving in the right direction. So Cardinals fans should be happy about that.
He's been impressive. He's got, and he's got, at least it seems to me, Bernie, you may disagree, he's got that mentality back of, okay, I'm good. He did have the first inning where you went, oh boy, but then he just kind of calms himself down and he's back in control a little bit again, which is a good thing for him. We've seen him when he's not, and when he gets flustered and he's all over the place. He's constantly moving and flipping the ball and this and that. And he was better last night. Now, the first inning got a little shaky, but he got out of it, and then it was like, here we go. I'm just going to roll through this lineup. And that's a good lineup that he rolls through.
Really impressed by Jordan Hicks. Last 10 appearances, including last night, and I know he gave up a double, I think. It didn't matter. Didn't score. He's going to give up hits. He's not perfect. But he's been great over his last 10 appearances, 12 in a third inning. No runs allowed, only 4 hits, a couple 3 walks. 12 in a third inning, 4 hits, no runs, 40% strikeout rate. So he continues, talk about moving in the right direction. He is definitely doing that, which also, depending on the situation, he could be an attractive trade candidate because he'll be a free agent after this year. And I was reading a piece. I apologize to whoever the hell it was that wrote it, but it was good. Nationally, someone wrote this. Like all of the contending teams are like hungry, really, really hungry to get a good relief pitcher at the deadline or before the deadline. So we talked about this with Derek Gould yesterday. Gould made a really good point, because you got Flaherty going to be a free agent, Montgomery going to be a free agent. Do the Cardinals want to trade them, or do they want to hold on to them and get the equivalent of like a first-round draft pick for each of them? It all depends what the offers are, I think. And again, these things can't be answered or settled on June the 8th,
Right.
So there's no way. So this is what they should do. No, you can't. Unless you're stupid, you can't do that. Because we don't know what the conditions are going to be like in terms of looking to trade Flaherty or Montgomery or Hicks. But of the three, Hicks might have the most value, actually, because teams are desperate for bullpen help, the good teams.
Always are, especially a guy who can strike people up, Bernie. We get to the playoffs. You've had numbers all year, last year in the playoffs. If you have a bullpen that strikes guys out, you probably have a better chance of winning ball games than someone who doesn't. I mean, that's the way the game's played in the playoffs now.
The Cardinals, so they're coming home tomorrow night, and, we'll make a couple more comments about the Cardinals, and we'll move on. Get a couple other things. And, we're going to be moving the ball around quite a bit with our guests today. But, the Cardinals, last night doesn't change. Obviously, it doesn't change the reality that they've been through a really rough time. And here's why I say this. When you look back, and I know that I kept pointing ahead like, man, they got this stretch where they got to play 13 of 15 on the road. And even though they had just done well against the Cubs and the Red Sox and the Dodgers and the Brewers, that's when they went on their run. It's like, man, that's a lot of games on the road, and I don't particularly trust them, even though they were playing really well at the time. So when they headed out on the road after that homestand that ended with the Cardinals, winning, beating the Dodgers in a series. Sorry, they were 21-27, but that means they're only 6 games under. They're 6 games under 500, and they had 11 wins in 14 games, and they had been down by at least by as much as 10 games, and then they narrowed the gap to 5. So that's the day they started to load up the bags and the equipment and fly into Ohio, Cincinnati, Cleveland, home here for 2 games against Kansas City. Then go to Pittsburgh, then go to the Texas Rangers. So they were making progress, 6 under, cut the deficit from 10 to 5. And then after this 13 out of 15 stretch, 13 on the road in a 15-game stretch, wow. So now instead of being 6 games under 500, they're 11 under. Instead of being 5 out of first place, their deficit's back up to 8.5 games. So that was really, needless to say, I wanted to give you the background and the reminder of where they were when they left for this odyssey of 13 road games and 15 games overall. This was really, really damaging. And I would say, listen, man, I can't predict the future. I know the NL Central, I would say this, the NL Central seems to be getting better. Cincinnati Reds are a dangerous team right now. The Brewers keep winning, and they keep winning with players. I don't even know who they are. Pitchers like, who? What?
Yes.
And, again, they have one of the best. I would say he's the best manager in the game, if not he's in the top 3. And they have a front office that is vastly superior to the one in St. Louis. And they find ways to win, and they've used 45 players this season. And going into this week, they had 14 players on the IL, including 3 starting pitchers, and then 2 guys that would have been in the rotation had they themselves not been injured. I'm talking about Aaron Ashby and Brendan Rodgers. So, I keep talking about, well, the Cardinals, the best thing they got for them is the NL Central. Well, that's true. But number one, the NL Central, seriously, I think it's better. I think that there's more talent on the field in Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Milwaukee's got the smartest people running the team, managing the team. So those guys. And listen, the Cubs are even got some things going. I mean, Stroman pitched great again today. They're only about halfway through where they want to be as far as, getting prospects up there, sort of retooling and, adding more youth. They're doing it at a deliberate pace, but they're a better team this year. So the National League Central was a crutch, and we've all said that a million times, but I don't know that it's that much of I don't think it's that much of a crutch at all right now. But my point that I need to get to is simply this. When they got it to 21 and 27, although that's not a good record, it certainly was a hell of a lot better than 10 and 24, and that's where they started. But you can't talk about the NL Central and, it's the NL Central. They'll be all right. When they don't win games, why would we even say that? And that's why they lost so much ground on this last 15 games that had 13 on the road. They really damaged their own cause because they were making progress. They were cutting into the league. They were up to third place. Now they're back in fifth, which is last. So what I'm trying to say, and I alluded to it at the top of this little speech, we may look back on this and say, you know what? Right there, right then and there, after they had won 11 of 14 games and everyone's saying, watch out for the Cardinals. Tom Verducci wrote a piece at SI, said they're the team to beat. And I don't think he was even talking about the Central. So everyone's going nuts. They win 11 out of 14. Then comes this 15-game stretch that they just ended, and I don't think it could have gone worse. Technically, yeah, because they did win 5 and lose 10. But realistically, I do not think it could have been any worse than it was. And at least winning the game in Texas prevented it from being 4 and 11. But this was an extremely damaging stretch for the St. Louis Cardinals.
When I look at this a little bit, Bernie, that disaster stretch out west to end April, and then they started getting smoked by L.A., and then they got beat 2 out of 3 by Detroit. It's like, oh, boy, that's rough. They came back, as you pointed out. But where they're at now, I'm worried about this weekend. Because to your point, after coming off this disastrous road trip, that's 2 of them. I mean, these are just god-awful road trips that they've had thus far in the season. To your point, it makes it next to impossible to try and recover. But this Reds team, when they come in here, and I know you're going to talk about them a lot tomorrow and moving forward, but their shortstop's playing pretty good. This kid Martin, Eladea Cruz, he may hit 3 or 4 home runs when he comes in here this weekend. He looks like he's going to be that kind of player. No scouting report. I can just see this going, wow, it's everything. Yeah, no kidding. It was okay to get that win. I'm sorry, better than okay to get that win last night. But I still don't feel like there's any way they can build momentum unless, and it starts tomorrow, like you said, Montgomery starts being Montgomery, because then that'll at least give you 3 guys that you can count on. Because if you don't have them, you can't do anything.
The Reds' young players right now are making more impact than the Cardinals' young players, and the Reds' young players are pretty phenomenal. And this was the 5th best farm system according to Baseball America. They were ranked or MLB.com. They were ranked number 5. And a lot of the guys on their list of prospects, they're already up here. McLean, I mean, I could go through them all. Of course, De La Cruz is amazing, what he did in his debut. And, again, I can go on and on. They had a left-handed prospect named Abbott pitch yesterday and win. He looked great.
Yep.
So they're getting a lot of impact from young guys. And, by the way, more are on the way. I mean, the Reds had so many guys on these top 100 lists, and, they probably have more than half of them still in the minors, but they're getting closer and closer and closer. They have a first baseman. I don't need to look for his name right now. They have a first base prospect who turned heads in spring training, and he's down in AAA just going absolutely nuts. He's got like 17 home runs, 51 RBIs. He's hitting way over 300, on-base percentage way over 400. So Joey Votto, who just can't get healthy, and who knows where that's going to lead, They got a guy ready to plug in right away. So everyone just really thinks, well, the Cardinals got the young players. They got this. They got that. Pretty good suggestion, I think, is you better look behind you because you got the prospects loaded with young players that are getting better and better and better. You got the Reds getting filled, their roster getting filled with young players who are really good. And you've even got the Cubs who have done a good job with some of their young players, and more are on the way. So this ain't the old NL Central. This isn't what the Cardinals are used to, and they sure as heck aren't used to being in last place and being 11 games under 500 on June the 8th. So reality has very, 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 very much slapped them across the face. And they seem to be recovering. They won 11 out of 14, and they beat some really good teams doing so. And then I don't know whether it sort of became, we're the Cardinals. Everybody stand back, baby. We're back. Everybody get out the way. We're here, and we're ready to take this division. 5-10.
Yeah.
I don't trust them, man.
Oh, I agree.
There's no reason to trust them.
I started to go, okay, I think they're right at the ship, but after this trip, no. And it keeps getting brought up, and I see it on Twitter, people throwing out these videos. Like the other night when Walker hit his blast, it was like they showed a sideline of a side shot of the dugout as he walked through the dugout, and I see it on Twitter. People goes, not a lot of excitement on that bench right now.
It wasn't.
Like, yeah, so what? He hit a monster home run. No one cares.
I forgot to talk about that. I wrote a little bit about it at Scoops with Danny Mac. I didn't make a big deal about it, but I wrote it. I thought it was one of the crazy. I was just like really stunned by that. The only guy that was like banging on the dugout and he was leaning his head over and he's hitting the face of the dugout with both of his hands was Andrew Kisner. He's going nuts, as he should have.
Yeah.
The guy just cranked one 430 and put you within 2 runs of the Rangers. But more than anything, he's a guy that's got a lot of the future of this organization on his back, talking about Jordan Walker. And he's a hell of a guy, and he's a hell of a teammate. And he's been through a tough 2023. And he hits one he hits one to the moon. And you look at that initial dugout shot, they're all standing there and sitting there except for Kisner. Now, by the time he made his way around the bases and got to the dugout steps, well, yeah, they were up and hooting and hollering and all that, and they have to. They got no choice. But where was the spontaneous reaction? And that's why it was interesting that whoever's directing the broadcast rightfully wanted to see the dugout reaction like seconds after it happened. And there was nothing going on in the dugout. They quickly cut out of that. They cut away from that as fast as they could. Because the only guy that even looked like he was alive was Andrew Kisner. And like I said in the little area where I wrote about that on Scoops with Danny Mac, I said, like, what's going on here? A kid does that, which it's exciting when he hit a home run, but he hit an absolute missile. He hit it in a place where not a lot of players in that ballpark reach. And instead of the dugout did not come alive.
It is a mess.
What's going on down there? So that's why whenever I hear someone talking about, Mo, when his recent interview with Katie Wu, the players are, like he's basically saying, there's no issues with that kind of stuff, and all the players believe in Ollie and this is good, that's good. We got leaders. I don't know. I know they were losing the game, but the point is he hit 430 and he got you within 2 and you at least had a chance. In other words, it wasn't like a 12-1 game or something. It was still a meaningful situation, even though they didn't go on to win. Well, how are they going to come back and win after Walker hit the home run when they couldn't even bother to get up and cheer for the guy? Yeah, hooray team.
Yeah.
Rah, rah, rah. Can we get back to the hotel before room service closes? I don't care about this home run.
Yeah, that's
something ain't right with this bunch. And I don't care How many people the Cardinals say, because Marmal's given those speeches when he talked to Tom Verducci, despite what people on the outside think and say, this team never stopped believing in itself. And our guys are tight, and we have great camaraderie, we have great chemistry. Okay, you do. Easy to say that when you're playing your one good stretch of baseball during the season, and then Mo plays that too. I don't care. I do not care who tells me that, including a media apologist. No, I see nothing that indicates all is healthy. Now, can that change? Yeah. If you win, usually that's an automatic thing that sort of kicks up, but we'll have to wait and see, because they won for 2 weeks and then they went right back in the tank. And when their top prospect hits a bomb, gets them within 2 runs, they couldn't be bothered to react until he actually arrived at the dugout.
Texter says tons of excitement after the Reds on their walk-off winner last night. Unlike the Cardinals, he said the Cards looked like they got out of an HR staff meeting that could have been done and covered in an email.
So true.
Yep.